What's up, world? How's everybody doing? Today I am choosing to express my First Amendment right to free speech and tell my story. I just went through one of the hardest times of my entire life, and everything in my life was compromised. And I am going to tell you this story probably out of order a little bit, focused on each person at a time. And this story is, if not the most important for me, but probably could be the most important for you. And it starts off with a love story, or so I thought it was a love story. I'm a person who tends to find joy in many areas of my life, no matter what hard things are happening to me. I have been tuned into myself and the kinds of things that happen in my life could have possibly been your story as well. And that is really important to me, to share my voice and let this story be heard, so that if you can relate to this story, that it could benefit you and our future. Well, it starts off with a person that I met last year around April time. I first engaged with this person on social media through the Facebook app. And they had sent me a paragraph message about how they were interested in me. And the message came off as normal, just like how any person might approach you online through a simple message saying that they're interested in you, that they wanted to talk to you and maybe get to know you. I thought this person was attractive, and I at the time had been single. I am normally monogamous. I have had experiences for tiny short blips, where I wanted to explore a somewhat of a poly situation, but those didn't last long. And so majority of my life, I would say 98% of my life, I was either single or monogamous, and I like it that way. So we'll call this person a Cancer. This Cancer person appeared to be a nice person, though I had learned a very hard lesson about who they were later down the line. It started out with a little infatuation between us. We talked on Facebook for a short bit of time, and then we progressed to video call messaging, and we talked for about a week and a half on video call messenger, and things started to progress between us. The attraction, I mean, is what started to progress between us. He lived in Seattle and I lived here in Oregon. And they claimed that they didn't have a car, or really a home. They claimed that they didn't really have a home, though they never really specified exactly the specifics to that situation. But they led me on to believe that they didn't have a home and that their mom was letting them stay in her car, as well as them but really expressing that they had really nowhere that they were really living. Though at the time they were staying with this girl, and she lived in Seattle, but he claimed that they weren't together and that they were just friends. He did say that they had hooked up at one point. She might be a Gemini. I'm thinking a Gemini. There might be a resemblance to a crystal in this story. That may or may not have been her name. But anyways, he was staying with this said girl who was letting him stay at her place while she went to work and had like another partner. And I had a conversation with him about the specifics to that relationship, because I'm monogamous and truthful, and it's important to have boundaries about the kinds of relationships that we're getting into, and telling the truth so that we're all on the same page, right? That's the responsible thing to do. Well, I had an attraction for this person and I wanted to see what they were about, just as any girl does when they have infatuation towards a person that they like. And I had invited him to come visit me in Oregon, and so we had been messaging for about a week and a half, and he came off as a normal guy that I wanted to get to know. So, but he didn't have any means of transportation, so I went and picked him up in Seattle. And this person came back with me to the house that I was paying rent at. And I had lived in this home from about October to February, March, and we were living with my friend Tanner, and he's an Aries, and I had been having issues with that roommate who's an Aries, because they were coming on to me a lot, and I was just their friend, and I had made that clear that we were just friends, and they started to cause disruption towards me and yell at me in the house and disrespect me. They also gave my cat away that I was watching for a friend without my permission when I had asked them not to do that. So this Aries was creating issues that made me feel uncomfortable in the house, and was a difficult place to live because of the confrontation that I was experiencing from this said Aries. So I was planning to move out because I had already gone through a lot with the relationship that I had previously for about 4 years. And I just didn't want to handle any more pressure or undeserved negative energy, because this guy didn't accept the fact that I didn't want him. And I had decided I'm going to move back to my mom's house. So this was maybe like a week and a half, 2 weeks before I had moved back to my mom's. So I was living with Tanner, this Aries, and before I moved out, I had this Cancer person. I'll just say their name. He goes by Darian Ramos. And Darian came and stayed with me at Tanner's house for about a week and a half, 2 weeks, something like that. And we had differences in our morals concerning spirituality / religion, whatever you want to call it, beliefs in a higher power. And we had argued about that quite a bit in these first moments of living together. Well, we weren't exactly living together. I just invited him to come visit me and stay with me. And this person led me on to believe that they had good intentions, except for about a couple days into hanging out with this Cancer named Darian. He had given me all types of ideas about faithfulness and being honest, and really pressuring me into, like, grilling into me that I had to be a truthful, honest person. And it didn't make any sense to me because I was already a truthful, honest person. So it was really bothering me and, like, catching me off guard. Well, one night when we were hanging out, I received a message from this girl. I think she's a Gemini, but her name could be Crystal. Anyway, this girl had messaged me, and she was like, "Is Darian with you? Because he told me he was going to a festival." And I was like, "Yeah, he's with me. He told me that he was coming to see me. There was no mentioning about a festival." And then him and I argued about it because he had pressured me so much into me being truthful and me being an honest person telling the truth. But then this random girl was messaging me on Instagram telling me that he lied, pretty much, and said he was at a festival, and he wasn't. He was with me at my place, Tanner's house. And I was really frustrated by that. And we sat down and had a conversation about his lying. And I just really didn't want to deal with that. So I told him that he needed to go. And this was about a week and a half into seeing each other. And sorry, my allergies are really bad. So him and I weren't getting along. And so I decided that he needed to go. So I was like, I don't feel safe. I've just went through a lot with my last ex. There's this pressure from this other guy trying to, have something with me, and I didn't want it, and I clearly expressed that we were just friends. And so I was like, I am going to buy you a train ticket back home because this is just feeling too dangerous for me, right? Or I was really upset, and I had just gone through a lot. So I was like, this is a lot. Like, I don't want to risk any more problems or hardship. Like, I've already been through so much. And I bought him a train ticket, and even on the way to the train, I was so stressed out. I was crying, and he wasn't he was not giving me any kind of like words or communication that could help me calm down. So I continued on to take him back to the train station. And I even stopped at one point and got out of the car, and I had told him that he needed to find his own way to the train because I was feeling unsafe. And I cried a whole bunch, and we stopped at this plaza, and I was like crying, and he was like stirred up and like started to like, freak out. And I was like, why are you freaked out? Like, I'm the one that feels scared. Like, you should be consoling me so that I feel safe. But he didn't. And then it dawned on me that this person was probably guilty for lying about the other girl that he was seeing. This girl that he was staying with, who I think is a Gemini. Anyways, he was staying with that girl, and even though she had another boyfriend, he claimed that they had done the hanky-panky, that they have had intercourse. And I was like, I don't really care if people like do that. There just needs to be boundaries set so that everyone's on the same page and everything's not confusing. But that was a short-lived experience involving that mind state of like seeing more than one person at a time. I had been seeing this other guy before he came, and I had let him know that I was in a relationship with somebody else and that boundaries were really important to me. So he needs to, tell the truth if we're both in the same, if we're both in a place of dating more than one person at a time. Just like any adult needs to tell the truth about who they're dating and what they're doing, and being mindful and honest and truthful about the relationships that they have at the time. So he went back to Seattle. We had okay, let me go back. We had a disagreement about that. And so that day when I was taking him to the train, and I had been worked up from him pretty much not helping me feel safe, because some random girl was messaging me and telling me that he was lying. I was like, I can't deal with this. Like, I don't want any more liars in my life. And that's why I had chosen to be seeing this Taurus guy. And he was poly, and I wanted to explore that and see how that kind of life worked out for people, but I was still very adamant on a monogamous situation. I just find it to be less stressful and easier going and honest and more relieving and whatnot. Anyways, so I was dating this Taurus guy, and he had agreed that it was alright, to have another partner at the time. And so that's why I started to see Darian, the Cancer. And after he went back to Seattle by train, I continued to see Dylan, and then one day I received a message from Darian, this Cancer, and he was crying and he was telling me that he didn't have anyone, and he wanted to talk to me again. And I'm a very forgiving person that maybe can be at a fault at times. I felt bad for him because he had told me that he was pretty much homeless. So I was like, alright, what could go wrong? I'll just talk to him and see how it goes. And it seemed as though that he was a troubled person, just like any normal person goes through hardships. And I allowed him back into my life to try and resolve things and see if we can maturely work through our differences and maybe still talk. And my other partner, Dylan, was okay with that at the time, this Taurus. And well, we had all seemed like we got along well. We all went out to go listen to music one night, and it seemed like we all got along and we were having fun and it was a good time. Well, I did not seem to see that this person really love bombed me, this Cancer Darian guy, and my other partner, who's a Taurus, they had been telling me to maybe look out for them for some reason. I didn't understand at the time. But there was something about this Cancer that this Taurus didn't feel totally good about. And so he had been asking me questions, like, to make me think more about dating the cancer. And I believe that I was blinded by maybe the things that he saw that I didn't. And I was like, I think you could be wrong. Darian seems to be just troubled, because in their experiences that they told me about, it just seemed like they went through a hard time, as in Darian told me that he lost his sorry, apologies. He lost his storage unit, and he had lost his partner a year and a half ago, and her name was Jaden. And the story he told me was that she passed away in a hospital with a tumor, and I felt really bad for him. And the first night he came over and visited me in Oregon, he cried really hard telling me this story. Like, really hard. Like, have you ever seen a guy, like, cry? It was sad. Like, I felt really bad. But then at the same time, he was love bombing me. And so it felt like there were some strong emotions coming about really soon in this relationship. But I chose to give him the benefit of the doubt, considering the story that he told me, and just to love him anyway. Well, this cancer was convincing me to just be monogamous with him and not be with the Taurus guy. And he was love bombing me so much and making me feel really special, and he was funny, and I was having a lot of fun getting to know this cancer. And I am normally monogamous, so that really appealed to me. I was like, wow, another person who really likes monogamy and respects monogamy and wants to, just be us two. And that appealed to me more than the poly situation with the Taurus, Dylan. So I was like, yeah, let's do that. I really like you. You're really liking me. We're having a lot of fun, laughing. I forgive you for, lying to whatever girl that you said you were staying with. And, yeah, you can come back over. And so I went and picked him up from Seattle again. And he came back to my house with the Aries Tanner that I had been staying with. Right, but I was planning on moving out of that house. because I wasn't being treated very well there. And I'll tell you about that before I met Darian in another video about what happened to me, because it's such a long story, it's gonna take time. So anyways, I separated from this Taurus, Dylan, and I continued to stay and date the Cancer, who's Darian, and he started to live with me because he had told me he was homeless, and he helped me pack my stuff and leave Tanner's house so that I could go get some peace of mind at my mom's house. And that's also where my grandma lives. Anywho, we started to live there together. My family was not necessarily fond of him from the start of us living there together. They really didn't like the fact that he was staying there with me, but then he didn't have a job. And they wanted better for me. But I continued to date him anyways because it was a lot of fun and he was making me laugh a lot. Sorry, I'm still sick from everything that went on these past 5 months. More than that. Anyway, I'm also having allergies. But anyways, him and I stayed at my mom's. And it seemed like everything was going good. We were having a lot of fun. We were falling for each other really hard. It was seeming to be a really great time. But one day at my mom's, I was assaulted by him, and it came out of nowhere. It felt like he would create these arguments from thin air, and that doesn't normally happen to me because I'm just like a happy-go-lucky, light and fluffy kind of energy that really likes to like go in the park and play with my hula hoop and work on my projects that I went to school for, and yeah, I like singing, I like dancing, and I'm really happy-go-lucky kind of girl that just wants everyone to get along. And so it really confused me when we would have these arguments that escalated really quick, and I couldn't really make sense of it. So we had an argument at my mom's house, and it didn't go well, and normally you would just have an argument with somebody and then may take space from each other, and then be on our, way to like forgiveness and whatnot. But he had picked me up and threw me on my back, and it scared me really bad. It startled me, and I didn't know what to do or how to make sense of it because I was so confused, and it came out of nowhere, all at once. And then I had gone through a lot, right? And so I was like, Mom, I don't feel safe right now. Can you call the cops? I ran out to my car, and my mom called the police, and the police came to my mom's house, and I made a report to the police, and this was in Clark County, Vancouver, Washington. We had made a report about him throwing me down, and yeah, I was so confused because we had been getting along so well, and I thought we were getting along really great, and that's why I broke up with the Taurus, because I was having so much fun being with and feeling happy and having a good time with this cancer Darian guy, and that it didn't make sense to me why he would throw me down on my back like that. And yeah, it scared me a lot. So we called the police and we made a report, and he had claimed that he left the house, but after waiting in my car for certain amounts of time, I went back in the house, and I searched the house to see if he was lying and see if he was still there. And I found him in my closet, and he was in my closet crying. And he looked like a little kid crying in the closet, all scared. I was like, why are you scared? You're the one that hurt me. Like, you threw me down. Like, I'm the scared one. Like, and then he made this comment like, I'm just a little boy in a man's body or whatever. Or there's a little kid somewhere in here, a scared boy. And I was like, okay, well, that doesn't make sense because scared boys don't pick up girls and throw them down. Anyway, so that after he got out of the closet and he was done crying, he had somebody pick him up from my house. Or no, my mom drove him to the train station so that he could go back to Seattle. And so he did. So he went back to Seattle, and I stayed living at my mom's house. And I had started to see other people because I was like, I'm done with that situation, it's like probably not a good thing to like keep doing. Well, as I was dating other people, he continued to message me. He also got his mail sent to my mom's house without permission, which is a no-no. You should be asking people's permission to do that. So I started dating other people, and it was really conflicting because I really had a lot of fun with this person. They made me laugh a lot, and I was having a really good time just like enjoying the really good times when they were good. But there was little arguments and issues happening little by little as I started to see the Cancer Darian guy. But a part of me felt like he was just going through a hard time in life, and he was just scared, and like he had gone through a lot. So I chose to give him the benefit of the doubt until anyways, sorry, I get lost in thought sometimes. So I started dating other people, and I was living at my mom's, and he was back in Seattle. Well, he continued to message me and still want to like talk to me, and it was really hard to say no because when things were good, they were good, and when we were having fun, we were having fun. And I was confused, but I was like, this wasn't I don't feel like this was like a big enough issue for me to like not talk to him anymore. And so I again kept messaging Darian, and nothing was working out with any of the other people that I was seeing. So I had an issue like being lonely and like just wanting attention and affection from a person. I tend to be somebody who sticks to myself a lot because I like to feel peaceful and like calm and energized by recharging by being by myself. And I've always been looking for another person to, get along with, because sometimes it does get lonely, like when you're by yourself. For me, there has to be a balance of like getting my time by myself and then being with a person. Though I'm now learning to enjoy my alone time after it all, and find it very peaceful. I had to grow from this experience and realize the patterns that I was getting into that I didn't realize before. So once again, I was talking to Darian, And I invited him back over to my mom's house. And my family wasn't necessarily happy from that experience. And so they were like, he can't live here no more. Like, my grandma was like, he can't stay here no more. And I didn't understand how I was making the same mistake by letting this person back into my life again and again and again. I was just like, I'm having more fun with them than I am anyone else. They make me laugh. They really made me feel like I was beautiful, and important, and acknowledged, and special. And sorry, the trees are making a lot of noise. It's the wind blowing. He was making me feel this special, this love bomby, like special, like energy that nobody else was. And that really drew me in, so much so that I was not focusing on myself anymore, and I was giving a lot to this person. Well, this Darian person. And I tried to have them back at my mom's, and they were like, no, like, he can't be here, like, he needs to go. And I fell for him so much that I allowed myself to live in my car with him. Yeah. Have you ever let yourself sacrifice your own healthy well-being unknowingly because you didn't know better, because you wanted love so bad and you wanted to feel accepted and appreciated and acknowledged by somebody that you didn't mean to, but you overlooked levels of taking care of yourself? Well, that's a lesson I had to learn. And it put me through a lot. So anyways, we were living in my car and we were bouncing around, couch hopping. So I had some friends who were letting us stay and sleep on their couch sometimes. And then him and I, on the other nights, we were sleeping in my car. And one night, we were asleep outside of my mom's / grandma's house, right next to the house. They were letting us do that. They were letting us stay in my car on the side of the house. You know, it's public property, it's the street. And my family loves me, so they didn't want to tell me no, you know. And they probably wanted to keep an eye on me, just to make sure I was, like, safe. Anyway, well, one night, Darian and I were sleeping in my car, and the police showed up, and they had they had said that they were going to take him. And they took Darian to jail, to the Clark County Jail in Vancouver, Washington. And he was in jail for a couple days, and I tend to take on other people's issues because I give the benefit of the doubt to people way too often, and that's something I've recently learned. Well, at the same time, this person was wanting me to give them like all my access to my laptop and my email accounts and my social accounts and my online business, and because he had strong beliefs in being monogamous and being together, he had demanded that I give him access to these accounts, right? Well, I didn't think we had been dating long enough for that to happen, nor did he have a job yet, and he was leading me on to believe that he was trying to get a job, or so I thought. He was showing me on his phone that he was applying to, like, he kept bringing up his phone going, look, these are the jobs I'm applying for. And him and I had dated since we were at my mom's house from about mid-April, end of April to May, June, July, August. We dated through the summer till about October. Like mid-September, October. And in the midst of dating that whole time, it felt like he was really invasive, like, with my stuff, and he was pressuring me and, like, making me cry a lot for not wanting to give him access to my accounts. I did feel bad and gave him one of my checking account cards to use because he claimed that he didn't have any, and I didn't want, like, to be mean to him. I just wanted him to, like, feel taken care of, because he told me, like, how much of a hard time he had went through, and it didn't seem like a big deal to, like, share just one of my checking accounts with him. And I never used it. That I maybe used it like a couple times, but this is not like my main checking account. It was like one of those prepaid Visa like cards. Anyways, I was like, you can't have access to my accounts, but you can use this Visa card, to pay for things, and I'm not gonna give you money, like that. Like, if you're staying with me and we're both, like, homeless together and, like, trying to, like, save up for a place, and you know, have a good life, get a job, keep jobs that you can make your own money, and then you have this card you can use. I never officially like added him as a holder on this account, so I don't know if that matters, but his name wasn't on the account. And anyways, so in the summertime, we were hopping around, couch hopping, trying to get ahead. I was working my butt off with the job that I have, trying to save up and get so that we can have a place. And they were on their phone a lot, and even though they were saying that they were applying for a lot of jobs, it really didn't. He wasn't making any calls. He wasn't rechecking up on his applications. He wasn't going in and making an effort to go get a job. And so they were basically just living off of me and my money. And I didn't want to be hard on them because he said he had gone through a lot, but he was also feeding me the idea that he was trying to get a job, and it just didn't feel like it. And that really became a big factor. And at the time I was just like, well, maybe like the economy is just hard, and like you could just and you're just going through a period of no one wants to hire you for whatever reasons. At the same time, they were using up all my resources, and even one day when we were out after working, we were out at the waterfront and hanging out with friends and flowing, and I was like using my hula hoop and stuff. Well, there was this girl, and she looked really young, and I think she was blonde. I don't know, she could have been around like 21 years old or something. Anyway, he like got her number, and I was like, what the heck? This is weird. Like, but then, like, as soon as he saw my eyes, I was like, what is going on? And then he kind of like just walked away from her, and it was a really quick interaction. It was probably like less than 5 minutes, but that caught me really off guard. I was like, why would you go walk up to some young looking like 21-year-old girl when I'm right here and we're together? That didn't make sense to me. It bothered me. But I just was like, it was just a couple minutes of like interacting, so I just blew it off. I was like, okay, that was weird, but whatever. And there started to be little things like that in our relationship that was starting to stand out to me. And then it felt like he would just disappear. Like, we would be doing really good and, like, be having fun and, like, hanging out, laughing, cracking jokes. But then an argument would come out of nowhere, and they'd be like, what is happening? What? Anyways, it was starting to be really confusing. And it was starting to really bother me. But every time I tried to have a conversation with him to, like, gain clarity, it felt like he didn't want to answer my questions, like, straight off the bat. Like, he would give me an indirect answers. And so it would satisfy my desire to be answered, but then it would still leave me hanging at the same time. At the time, I didn't really understand what was going on. I was just like, oh, we're just arguing. Well, he started asking, like, weirder stuff too. Like, he asked if I wanted to sell these enhancement pills for men. And I was like, no. And no. I don't, actually. I really don't. And I had never been asked before by a guy about that. So I was really thrown off guard again. But then again, it wasn't enough to be like, okay, you need to, totally heck off. I was just like, that's really weird, and isn't that, like, illegal? And, like, no, I don't want to do that, actually. I really don't. And, he even, like, tried bringing me, like, weird toys for bed activities, and I was like, something's weird with you. I don't want to do that. I don't do that. I don't like that. So yeah, he was doing these things that were just, like, weird and very questionable that I really didn't understand at the time. But I was thrown off by. And he was quick to be all, okay, that's fine. But I was like, but that's weird. Like, why would you even try that, Anyways. So in the summertime, we had been couch hopping together. And at one point, we had an argument at our friend's house. And he straight up he left me. Just like that. Like, he didn't even, like, have a conversation with me about the argument that we had at the time. And he ended up just dipping out like that. And it was so messed up because my car had stopped working properly. It got a power steering issue, and out of nowhere, and I was like, this is not good, because we're like living out of my car and homeless, and that's like a main contributor to me making money with my job, and I depend on my car to pretty much live at the time and get from place to place, to get food, to get water, to get resources. And yeah, I was working for Instacart, and they were like trying to take some kind of ownership for working that job with me. But I was like, this is my job. What are you doing? Okay. And then we had an argument at my friend's house. And I was upset because he was completely ignoring me, not giving me my right to understand what was going on. And he had, out of nowhere, slapped me in my face. So slowly I started to lose my ability to stay as happy as I normally am and provide for myself, because I became homeless with this person that promised me they would get a job, continuously put their phone in my face saying, look, I applied for this job, look, I applied for this job, look, I applied for this job, leading me on more and more and more and more that he was going to get a job. And he never did. So he ended up hitting me in the face, and I stayed at my friend Andrew's house for a couple days trying to whip up money to buy a battery for my car. And it became really tough to make money without my main source of income, which was delivering groceries. And so I was too exhausted to try and report that incident that happened, so I didn't. I just had so much on my plate. And he had been lying and giving me ideas that I was being this unfaithful person, accusing me of being a liar, saying I'm sleeping with other people, and when I wasn't. But if he was homeless, then why was he able to go back to Seattle on a quick blink of an eye. That didn't make sense to me, so I started to catch on that he was lying to me little by little. And I had really not much support at the time in terms of mental health, emotional support type of thing. And I had so much things that I was juggling that it was hard to plan that. And I would believe that this person led me into being broke by me having to support them the whole time, pay for their food, and they even asked me like for clothes and stuff, and I supported them through that. And yeah, well, he would call me at times crying, freaking out, and pretty much begging for my attention and asking me to be faithful to him. And it felt like he tried to make me feel bad on purpose. It felt like he was planning these said moments of destruction and chaos between us, these arguments, these disagreements, these arguments about being committed and honest and honest and truthful to each other, when it didn't line up with his actions, because he would disappear out of nowhere just over a conversation or an argument that he made. And I was just too forgiving, and I felt bad because I thought he was homeless. That's what he was telling me when he was going back to Seattle. I thought that he was just like living in his mom's car. But then he was also hanging out with friends. But then at other times he would give me the impression that he was living at that same girl's house, the Gemini or the Crystal or whatever. And he continuously made me feel bad because he had a really good way of manipulating me emotionally and lying and covering things up to make it seem like I was the one that was overreacting when it was really him. And so